Let me tell you about this crazy encounter I experienced just the other day. So one of my friends visited me for the first time, and one of the first things that drew his attention was my bookshelf. So he noticed that I had quite like a number of books, not a lot. I used to have like a pile of books that could practically fill up this whole shelf, but people borrow and never bring back these books. And secondly, I have a weird story why some of the books are not there. Yeah, it's complicated. So this friend of mine rushed and checked out the books. He was like, "This is the stuff that you read." Like I looking at all these books, I practically can't read anything. I don't see myself reading anything on your list. So I was like, "What? What did you expect to see on the books? The transformative impact of love, uh, finding purpose and meaning in your life, the power of speech." Then he was like, "Fuck yeah, those are the books I want to primarily read about." And then he was like, these self-help books that you're talking down are actually very important. Look at your life. Look at how you're living. I feel like you don't have a lot of like social intelligence. You have all these sets of information that you just like put inside your head, but socially you cannot fully like relate to people because you're reading totally different shit. So I was like, okay, to some extent, if I am gonna extend an olive branch, I think he had a point. We are what we read and watch, and also what we spend 90% of our time thinking about. And I feel like he has a point there. Like 90% of my books are practically science related books and a little bit of like some philosophy books. But I feel, I feel, well, let me tell you this. I feel like reading for me is not just like a casual thing that you just do, like like taking a walk or something. I feel like reading takes a lot of like burns a lot of like brain power as well as time. It eats a lot of your time. So for me, if I'm gonna read, then it has to be it has to count. I just can't read anything. And since it has to count, and in my mind and in my activities as well as my social life, there's this fight for prioritization. Like what's gonna take up 90% of my time? I don't want to waste a month or 3 weeks straight reading about how to talk to people, reading about how to have satisfactory sentimental relationships. I mean, god damn it. That is not to say all these things are like trivia. Their significance speaks for itself. I just feel like, the human experience as well as life and my life, it's too short, man. Like there's all these books that are just waiting to be unpacked and understood. And the last thing I want to do is spend 90% of my time reading about how to keep a relationship or how to be a morally in tune person. Like, bro, like I just don't have the time, man. I don't have the time. Um, for my moral background, as well as what primarily makes up my moral foundation, I feel it primarily comes from my background as a Jehovah's Witness. So, how I relate to people was nicely hardwired by my Jehovah's Witness background. I feel like that's still there, and I can run on that for like some time. Yeah, I know it's intellectually lazy, but I'm not a guy that's gonna win like a philosophical argument on what grounds morality or what should properly justify right and wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I admit, man, I'm no philosophical genius. I'm just like a dude living. You know what I mean? So I just feel like, important as these things may be, they 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 don't warrant 90% of my reading time. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. This is Charles Darwin on The Origin of Species, the revolutionary book. I appreciated the whole the whole theory so much so that I decided to write a poem about it. And this was like 4 years ago. I wrote arguably the longest poem in Lusaka City. The poem is like 18 minutes long. I broke down Darwin's history. I broke down his process of going through, like, just discovering and coming to the realization that we are not necessarily a cause of like intelligent creation by a supernatural deity, but simply natural processes that are blind and unguided and brought about everything that we see around. It was just like a crazy idea. It was so crazy. I was so moved. I felt like, I'm going to go out there and proselytize. Yeah, but anyway, so yeah, do watch the poem. If you haven't watched the poem and if you haven't subscribed to my channel, you better subscribe, man. Remember, the goal is simple: to propagate a love for science and philosophy in our country. Yeah, and if you want to suggest some topics, do suggest some topics. I'll start talking to people soon. Use this very background for some podcasts and episodes. I'll use my green screened bookshelf, which is like a dream. Yeah, but yeah. So just some conversations, or just some people I could possibly talk to. I want to, go back to like having actual conversations on my channel. So more life and more love for science. Thank you very much. Subscribe, my nigga.